Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Kansas City jazz saxophonist Ernest Melton. He talked about his latest 2018 CD, The Time of the Slave is Over. This local busy musician was born in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and would relocate to Kansas City at the age of 10. He picked up the sax that same year and was enrolled in the Longfellow Academy, joining his first jazz program through that great American Jazz Museum in KC. After being accepted into the Berklee College of Music, he decided not to go there and started his career playing music in bands of every genre all over Kansas City. While he is still in his early 20s, Ernest has played all over the country and plans to travel abroad and do so much more. He's got plenty to say, so get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Ernest, thanks for taking a minute to talk to me on Jazz, man. I appreciate it.
Sure.
So I have listened to The Time of the Slave is Over. It's a great album. I'm sure, you know, with this release, there's a lot of happiness that goes into this. So just in general, before we get into the album, talk to me about how you feel about this release being out in the world.
At the moment, I feel good about it in general. And simply, I feel good about it being out, people having it.
Talk to me about, there's an edge to this. There's definitely a distinct voice, being a younger voice in the Kansas City jazz community. What are you trying to convey with the sound, the message, and the vibe of this release?
This particular release, I know it's very energetic. It's a kind of a lot of it is a bit of a test of myself as a player, and that's kind of how it started. It's like, okay, you know, I would get an idea and I really couldn't physically do it yet. Okay, well, I'm going to write this tune, and by the time this tune is done, or by the time I record this stuff, we're going to be able to do everything we're trying to do. So that was really like the first thing. As far as the vibe, I know it's pretty aggressive, but it's more of just sort of like me, like pushing myself a bit, as well as just some musical things I want to experience, you know, with my band.
Talk to me about the title of the album. What's that mean for you? What's that mean for the listener as they kind of wrap their ears around this album?
And I know it's kind of it's two-sided, and at least about what it looks like and what it really is and where I really got it from. But for me, the title came from it's a reminder to myself just to like be focused and not let anything I don't need to deal with, you know, just not to put any time into it. Because to me, anything that's negative that you think about or that you focus on is something you're enslaved to. That's really like the title is just a reminder to myself to like not worry about those things I don't have to, things that don't help me at all. Don't be a slave to anything anymore. Just do what you need to do. Beautiful.
Talk to me about what's going on with you in the Kansas City scene. You've always been a staple on the scene, but kind of talk to me about what's going on so that those that want to come out and see you and get the CD can have that chance to do so.
I'm always with different bands, you know, and I'm still new to the artist thing, or still like making my own music, so I'm still playing with. It's always been very scattered. People have asked me for years, you know, where are you? I'll say, I know today I'll be at Chaz, so that I'll have some CDs there. Other than that, it'll be like I'm with a different band. It's really scattered.
So if anybody wanted to check out what you're doing, they could go to your Facebook page and see what's going on.
Yeah, it's all. The music the music, Facebook, my website, ernestmelton.com, just straightforward. Music there, Amazon, Spotify, everywhere music is sold generally.
Let's go back to the beginnings of your life prior to Kansas City. You were born in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and you relocated to your mother's hometown at the age of 10, which happens to be Kansas City. Talk to me about your early life in North Carolina, how you got into music, and even more specifically jazz.
My father's side is the musical side. My mother's side is not musical. My father's sings. My father's preacher. My father's just the whole family over there down there. They're all singers. He plays a little bit of like old church piano. So that's kind of where I was raised in church without any instruments in it, so I wrote everybody kind of sang. And, my mom really did. She wasn't from there, so she didn't really involve herself too much in the music, like trying to learn to sing or anything, but we were little kids, so we were like, okay, we're going to sing like everybody else. Me and my two sisters, we all sung, so that's kind of really just my dad's side, they're really the musical people. And as far as jazz, Dad didn't have until I was about 14.
What albums were you listening to?
The jazz that really made me want to play was like John Coltrane's like later stuff. That was the first stuff that like made me like really want to play the instrument. Wayne Shorter's albums came later, stuff like that. Eventually, by the time I was like 16, it really could have been anything. I was just listening to jazz albums all day. And by 16 or 17, I was just kind of, my whole day was full with that. So it could be Eric Dolphy, Mingus, that became a huge influence, and I just kept going on from here.
Why did you pick the saxophone? You could have picked anything.
Honestly, the simple answer is it's the easiest one. Because I used to try to mess around with the guitar, and I messed around with like drums and bass downs. It was really, I think, other than it being really easy, it was because it can hold out notes. I guess that was sort of its one little power that made it like a little more intense to me. It's like, just like holding the note out. And then I could still pretty much imitate all the other instruments too around me. But yeah, just the longevity of that.
In all of the years that I've been doing neon jazz, it's been since 2011, I've spent a lot of time trying to wrap my head around local talent, the Kansas City scene, what's going on. And I remember the first time I ever heard about you was from Anita Dixon. We were down at the Mutual Musicians Foundation, probably 2013 or 14, and I was doing an overview of the foundation. And towards the end, she said, you have to check this cat out. It's kind of just, he's a superstar. He's young, and he's kind of channeling this vibe and energy almost to Charlie Parker. And I was like, cool, who is it? And she said, his name is Ernest Melton, and you got to check him out. He's the foundation. He's phenomenal. So from there, I want to ask you this. How did you get your start in Kansas City? Was it at the foundation? Kind of give me an idea of the timeline here in Kansas City that kind of has led to where we're at today with this album and what's going on in the scene.
Literally, it's been about 7 years. So it's let's say I get my first real gig at 15. Some older guys asked me to play with one of them, so that's 15. And eventually, what happens is I get my GED. So at that point, and my mom, she allows me to leave school. So what happens is at age 16, I'm allowed to basically, it was a sort of trade-off. I get to practice all day as long as I go get my GED and apply for college. So 16, I'm starting to play with like blues bands because I'm out of school. I got more time on my hand. I'm practicing all day. I'm listening out with blues bands, whoever else calls me, some funk bands. I used to be in a whole lot of different bands, just doing everything I could. And then, so that continues for, a couple of years. Eventually you sort of whittle it down, to people who are more worse, but just better business-wise and better musically. And, so I just keep going. It's like, that's pretty much what I did for a long time. I was writing proposals in my own time, but I was mostly just playing with people, and of course the foundation was very integral in it. I met a lot of good musicians there. I met like DeAndre Henning. I met DeAndre Henning here, I believe, not mistaken. So yeah, they used to be there all the time. When I first started singing, me and DeAndre we kind of both like dropped into the city at the same time. He had just came from Wichita, and I was still like 17 or 18. So anyway, we just playing with people, just making you just keep connecting. And, someone offers you something, someone gives you a better offer later. It's like, well, hey man, I can't do this anymore because growing, and then eventually you get older, you got to take care of more bills things. And it's like, well, I better start paying more attention to, what I do now, who I play with, because for that kind of thing, because I'm a full-time musician, and that's really just how it kind of grew, just me singing to play. And then not till more recently that I sort of get the idea of, like, let's say this past summer, the idea of being my own sort of artist. So really it's all as far as like really releasing albums and pushing things out. It's really new to me, but basically for about 6 years I would just play, everywhere I could. I also want to say the foundation's been a big part of that. It's been a very big part of that. Just as a musician myself, it's done a lot.
Cool. How do you feel about the Kansas City scene? This has been your home. This has been your place. You've grown up in it. How do you feel about the Kansas City jazz scene in 2018?
I've always sort of been in and out of that. It's been periods where I was dealing with it a whole lot and dealing with it less. I deal with it a lot now. And, it's not bad. To answer your question, it's not bad. I couldn't say anything about it. I'm recently sort of starting to deal with it more directly, because I would just, as far as the jazz scene, I would just sort of step in on a few gigs in the jazz club, step out. I'm back to like my blues, my rock, but mostly I play mostly contemporary music. Now, at least for the last 5 years. This year is different, but usually I was playing like contemporary, so I would just, have a jazz gig here and there, kind of go back to what I was doing after that. So, but in general, I think it's good, especially now when the city is growing. I've seen the city get a lot, bigger, a lot more diverse, a lot of different guys coming. Something's happening. I'll put it that way. Something is going to be something really cool, especially the more people come and more people are like, want to take control of it, you know what I'm saying? I think in general, it's becoming more diverse, and it's going somewhere. That's what I can say about it.
You've obviously devoted your life to the jazz craft. So my question is this: why do you love jazz?
I can't say I only love jazz, but as far as my relationship with jazz is, it's the most expressive one out there, at least as far as genres go. We all have sort of a genre discussion, and jazz, the term is so broad. So, anyway, that comes with its consequences. But as far as jazz is in general, I love improvisation. At least, to put it simply, improvisation is probably the best part of it.
So, talk to me about live jazz shows that you've seen that have left a big impression on you.
And just as a disclaimer, I'm pretty picky. But yeah, I've seen Kenny Garrett twice. He's always been an influence just on like far as just like tone and ambiguity, being able to fit in with any sort of situation. So Kenny Garrett, just his whole thing, he had a big effect on me. I saw Gregory Porter this summer at one of those jazz festivals with the orchestra. That was really nice. Just this experience how, all that works together, the harmonies and the instruments, how it sounds, that big sort of thing sound. That was a good experience. The jazz, he was there well. So that was a pretty good experience.
Let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you, who they think you are, your family, your friends, fans that see you perform, but you know who you are. Tell me, who do you think you are?
I'm Ernest Melton. I play saxophone, like music. That's all I got for you. That's cool. What I do.
That's cool. I dig it, man. Totally dig it, man. Hey, thanks for what you do for Kansas City.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Kansas City and spots all over the world, giving fans jazz. And thanks to Ernest for his time, his music, and that contribution to this rich KC scene. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.